Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Well, do you think we could start at least, huh?
In a way, it's interesting at the same time, and I think of it as, I don't know if I would call it interesting either.
Well,
I really went through a rough life out of it.
No, yeah, this is the first I knew about it. Well, let's start like, well, how old were you when you left Sweden?
Oh, I was 14 years old when I left.
And how did you come over from, you took a boat,
Yeah.
and you landed in New York?
No, Quebec, Canada.
Oh, you come through Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And then where'd you go from there?
Well, we went to St. Marie, Michigan. That's where we came into the United States, and then we went over to Marshall, Minnesota. That's where my oldest brother was at the time.
Yeah, that isn't very far from Duluth, is it?
350 miles.
Oh, is that far?
Yeah.
Oh. And you stayed there how long?
And there I went to school for 3 months. I came there in the fall, in November, and I went to school for 3 months. I was in 4th grade when I stopped the school then.
Yeah, and then from your parents were with you there.
Yeah. And that brought it up to the spring of 1900, and then I hired out on the farm for 8 months. First 2 months I had $12 a month, and the other 6 months I had $14 a month.
Oh, that was in North Dakota?
No, that was in Minnesota.
Oh, that was in Minnesota.
12 miles from Marshall, Minnesota.
Oh, I see. And then, after that time, you went from where?
Well, from there in the fall of 1900, my brother and myself, we had then the responsibility of supplying for Dad and Mother. They were already up in age, and we were the only support we had. So we had to find something to do for the winter months. We went up into Aiken County to find work in the timber.
And that was the year you come up to Stir Place.
That's right. There we came. I was then 15 years old, and we came there, and my brother was 18.
You had very little money.
$20 in between us, and that we paid as first payment on 8 acres of land.
Were your folks with you then? No.
Yes, we were with us.
Oh yeah, then tell about that part.
Then we came to out there. We didn't really have much acquaintance either. Just the acquaintance we had was that my brother had come over from our country, happened to come on the same boat as if I had a family that moved up to Short Lake, and he began to write to the girls, and that's the only acquaintance we had. But he had the acquaintance we had made on the boat.
And you didn't know where they lived at all?
No, and they were bragging about how good the place it was and how easy it was to make a living there.
Oh, yeah?
So we came there. We came there in late November of 1900, and we found it very, very rugged. Came there, and we landed in town like 5 o'clock in the morning. We didn't know a soul, and we didn't know where we were going. And we waited until it got a little later in the day, and then we found a man that was going to drop into the community where we wanted to go, and we got in as a guide. And
There were no roads there or anything.
no, it was only trails in the woods. And this man, he hadn't been there for some time himself, so he went lost with us. So we walked all that day until late in the evening when we finally came out to South Lake. And then when we came out to South Lake, we then had to try to get somebody to go back to Tamarack and get our folks, because they had been waiting there all day long for us to come and get them.
Did they have anything to eat while they were there?
Oh, I imagine we must have found something.
Found something like this.
Though it wasn't very much in Tamarack, it was only 2-3 buildings there.
Is that all there was?
A little store and little depot, and
Well, how old were your folks at that time?
well, I really don't remember exactly. They were, I suppose, around 60 years old, something like that.
Wow.
So that was the kind of a poor start. Well, anyway, the folks, we got them out there after midnight that night, and they were very, very disgusted and discouraged to find out where they were going to be. But our money was spent, and we didn't have no way to, or we didn't know where else we could go, so we had to get them in with the family there, and we stayed there all winter, and we went out working in a camp.
Well, did you put this money on this acreage before you seen what it was?
Well, almost right away we sent in that $20 to be sure that
You did.
and that we were going to do.
On the advice of these people.
Of course, and so we went and got work in the lumber camp at $28 a month, which we thought was quite good money then days. And we stayed there all winter long. Though we never been in the woods before, we just made the most of it. I was young and either one of us hadn't been in the woods before, so we found it very, very hard work.
Did you work by the day then, or by
the month? $28 a month.
Of course. And your food.
Yeah.
And your food.
Yeah, we were about, I'd say 7-8 miles from South Lake, so we went to South Lake every Saturday night to see the folks. Returned to the camp early Monday morning. That we kept up for all winter long. And in the spring, the very first thing we had to think about was to try to get a place to live in. So there was this family that we had been staying all winter. They had 2 sons, and they helped us to get up a building. We skidded in logs and had them made up a little bit, and we even had to saw the lumber by hand for the roofing and floors, and we made the shingles by hand. And by the time we had enough so we could have a little shelter for Dad and Mother, we again had to venture out to try to find some place to make some money, because what little we had made during the winter was already gone.
How big was this little house that you had made?
It was 16 by 18.
Oh, that was a good-sized room, then.
Yeah. And that summer, to begin with, we hired out for a man that not far from Tamarack. He had a lot of cattle and horses, and he put up a lot of hay, so we hired out for him for $1.50 a day to cut grass, meadow grass by hand with a scythe. And that really was hard work.
Hard work.
We kept that up until quite late in the fall because he wasn't too particular with what kind of hay he got up. And because in the fall again we had to make it a little more shelter without it to be able to face the winter in the house. And after we got the shelter so we could figure out to keep warm there, but we had to go out in the camp again for the winter.
So how about that stove that you were telling us about?
Yeah, after we had our house quietly ready in the spring, we then didn't have anything to cook on, so we had to go to Aiken and buy a cast iron stove. I imagine it weighed about 350, maybe 400 pounds. And my brother and myself and the two other boys that have been helping us, they volunteered to come and help us carry the stove. We carried that stove for 7 miles. We had the pole on either side of the stove, so we carried it on our shoulders through mud and water. And that was quite a hard job.
Big job and so. So that stove, could double purpose keep the house warm and do your cooking.
Well, when it got cold in the fall, we also had bought one of these airtight stoves for heating. They're only made out of tin, I guess. Anyway, they're heated up very quick. So we used that also. So that winter we again hired out for the same man that we had been cutting hay for in the summer, and he gave us $30 a month. We were in a camp there. We were about 15 men in that camp all winter long. That was quite not so far to go as the first camp I was the first winter. And so we put in that winter for him. And in the spring we tried to get a little garden opened up with a grub booth.
This would be the second year that you were there.
Yeah. I think we got enough open ground, so we raised about 50 bushels of potatoes that year.
50 bushels?
Yeah, it really grew good, what little we got in. And we had a nice little garden, though the deers, the first fall, the deers came in and trimmed up the garden pretty much. There were trees, there were cabbage and stuff.
So did you have a gun? Like?
No, not then yet. We couldn't afford a gun, so the deers had the best of it.
You know you could have tracked them all.
No. And after the second winter in the woods, we came back and had to do the same thing over again, try to open up a little more ground and do a little bit of a farming. I don't put it on my...
Oh, go ahead, keep on talking.
You take it.
How many hours a day did you have to work on this log?
Well, anyway, 10 hours. It was from dark to dark.
Dark to dark?
Yeah.
So did they bring you a hot lunch then?
Hot lunch, we often ate beans that was already frozen a little, and we put them on the plate. So the lunch wasn't too hot.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was far over to go.
So how about coffee and stuff like that?
Well, they managed to, in most of the cases, to keep that warm because they would brought it out in big kettles or something that was covered.
How many men were there in the group?
There were 16 men in that camp country. We had not all in the same bunch with different places.
Oh, I see. Now tell us about this roof you were talking about.
Well, I guess I forgot to mention that when we left the first spring after we had the house ready enough so we thought we could live in it for the summer, we left it that way. We didn't have a door, so Sophie, our sister, she hung a blanket as doors, but we didn't have no ceiling either, so she thought that would have to be something for a ceiling. So she got the neighbors to cut a little more lumber, enough for the ceiling. And when that lumber got dry a little bit by that, he planed it by hand. And Sophie, our sister, she nailed it up. But the laughable thing about it was she used 20 penny nails, and the only hammer she had was a shoemaker hammer, you know, the light. And she drove in those 20 penny nails in the ceiling.
That must have been some job, huh?
Yeah, that was some job, I'm telling you.
How about the furniture in the cabin?
Well, the furniture wasn't very much. It wasn't very much. I guess we managed to buy. You could buy a good kitchen chair them days for around 75, 80 cents. And I guess we had 4 or 5 of them, and the table Dad made of some lumber he picked up. And that was just about all the furniture.
Well, how about like for the bedding and
Well, we bought a little on our way out to begin with. Of course, it wasn't very much, but anyway, we managed. We had a bed and for the books, and then we all had some place to sleep.
Now, you were how old? But
I was 15 when we started, and of course.
Yeah, but this is a couple years later. You were about 17 now.
Had you started the nursery yet then?
No, we weren't 17 yet.
You weren't 17 yet?
No.
So then, when did you start this nursery? And how long?
Oh, that was several years after. Several years. We didn't have no open ground yet, you know. The land was just covered with great big oaks. On the lake shore there was all heavy oak, very hard, clear. We used 200-300 pounds of dynamite to try to clear off 1 acre of ground.
Well, how much did the dynamite cost? That was pretty expensive, wasn't it?
The dynamite them days cost around $12 a 100.
100 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that was some. And the wood, those great big trees, the only way to get rid of them, while we didn't have any horses, we cut them up into wood, to cord wood, and we sold the wood for $1.50 a cord when it was dry.
$1.50 a cord. Well, how long did it take you to make up a cord?
Well, it takes a very good man to make 2 cords of wood a day.
All right.
Yeah, it takes a good man.
You sawed down the trees and then saw...
The 4-foot length and split it up. Cord of wood is 4 by 4 by 8.
But still, you made better money that way than you did just working for somebody, huh?
Well, you got to remember that stuff had to be hauled too for 4 miles.
Oh, I see. You had a haul, huh?
No, it was nothing in it. After some years later, after we got the horses, we used to slash down timber, slash it down crisscross, just the way the trees wanted to fall, and we leave it lay there until it got dry enough so we could touch a fire to it, and the tops and branches would burn off, and then we'd cut off the trees in the middle and skid them into big piles, let them dry like that, and burn it, because there was no money in handling timber.
There was no money in handling timber. So how about the other, when you were working out in the woods with them?
Well, because everything was cheap. That's the reason you worked in the camp, you didn't get nothing, because I know I sold logs myself off when we began to take out our own timber, nice big pine logs. We sold them for $6 a thousand.
$6 a thousand?
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't make any money with that.
And then that had to be hauled down to the station.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, you hear about so much of this logging in Minnesota.
Yeah, but remember that there was not much money in it.
Yeah.
And then after we had taken out the most of our timber, Me and neighbor of ours, we bought a lot of timber. We bought timber, 240 acres of timber. It was a lot of timber on it. And we took out about 1,200 cords of wood every winter beside the logs and other stuff. And all we cleared on that wood was 90 cents a cord on the land. We paid the $1 a cord to get it cut, $1 a cord to get it hauled, and 10 cents a cord to get the roads made in the wood. And we got $3 a cord on the land.
Oh, I see. Oh, you had several men working for you then?
Yeah, when we had that camp, yes. Because that was later after we got more established, you know. That was.
Yeah, but if you had several men working for you, 90 cents a cord.
Yeah, well, that wasn't all profit even at 90 cents because these men, they were playing tricks on us. Lots of times rather than to do the straight thing, they would cut up woods in short pieces and dress around the stump, make it look like wood, and then they'd pile it up. And then you come to haul it where you had only short chunks and that you couldn't use.
Oh, I see.
That was a lot of heartaches with it.
Yeah, well, you, as soon as they had the wood laid there, you paid them for it.
Yeah.
Now when you come around to haul it, you...
Yeah.
Well, how did you keep track of, could you keep track of the men that had laid it there?
No, after they knew, of course, what they had done, so after we were through, we got paid like skidoo.
I see.
Yeah.
That was quite a few years after you had been there for.
Oh, yes, that was after we had been there for many years.
Well, how long after you had been there did you get your first horse and your cows now?
I think we were there 3 years before we bought the horses, and we had one cow then already.
What did the horses cost you?
We bought the team of horses. We paid $250 for a team.
That much? Then?
Yeah.
Did you have the money to pay for them?
No. Everything went on credit. It was nothing to...
Horse cost $250.
Yeah.
They were pretty expensive then.
Yes, you see, it was a great demand for horses because of the timber business. Everybody had to have horses in order to haul timber.
Yeah. Oh, that's what brought them up so high.
And it was hard to keep horses too. For one thing, you worked them very, very hard. Anything you done with them, you had to work them so hard. And another thing, you mostly, what we fed them was cracked corn even in summer, and that wasn't good feed for them.
Oh, I see. Well, is oats better than...
Yeah, we thought they worked so hard, so they needed something better to...
Oh, corn is better than oats.
That's more substantial, but of course it's too hot feed for the summertime, but of course we didn't realize that.
Oh, I see. Well, did your horses wear out?
I lost quite a few horses the first years over there.
Oh.
One year I lost 3 horses.
3 horses? What did they die from them? Eating?
Well, they just lay down and died, that's all. To begin with, of course, you couldn't buy young horses. They were too expensive. You bought an old horse then.
Oh, I see. It was an old horse. Oh, yeah. Okay.
As we started at Short Lake, we had many varied experiences. Among one of the experiences that is outstanding in my memory is the very first summer we were out at Short Lake when our neighbor, Zetterbergs, got married. And of course, the country being that time of the year, it was always flooded with water over the meadows, so we had quite a time to get the preacher out that would conduct the wedding. In fact, we had to use a boat because it was no way to get out to the station with horses, and we had a big meadow to cross that was flooded with water, so we had the boat, and we had to pull this preacher in the boat. Since it was quite late already, it was in July, it was a lot of the tall grass, so the three of us couldn't ride in the boat. It was too much grass for that. So we had to pull the boat, and that was quite an experience. When the preacher came off the train at 10 o'clock in the evening, it came a downpour of rain, which added so much worse to the trouble to get him over the meadow, but we started out over the meadow with the preacher in the boat, and when we got halfway over, we were all tired out, and so we decided we would take in, it was a little high place in the center of the meadow there where a farmer lived with his family, so we decided we would try to stay overnight there to rest up a little. And they gave the minister a bed to sleep in, but myself and my partner, we had no other place but to lay on the floor in our wet clothes, and which wasn't very comfortable. Well, in the morning we again had to start out on our journey to try to get the preacher out to Surf Lake by the time the wedding should be performed. So we started out quite early and got the preacher out to Surf Lake. And that was quite an experience because we were wet and muddy, and we had no time to change or anything because we had to go right in to the wedding to take part in that. And as soon as the wedding was over, the preacher had to be taken back to the station to get on the train again. So,
how much did he charge for that wedding?
Nobody knows. He didn't say. He was well acquainted with the bridegroom, so that was something they made out between themselves.
Oh, I see. Now, that was quite a job.
It was, and quite an experience too. Close the thing off.
Next, I think you should tell how you met your wife and.
Well, I was out of Valley City, about 12 miles out in the country, firing a trash engine. And in them days, you had to put in long days on trashing. I always had to fire up 4 o'clock in the morning to be ready to start it.
You run the trash run?
You fire it was fired with straw.
Okay.
So we always started to trash between 6 and 7 in the morning. Well, to make the long story short, I seldom got into the house. They had a small tent out at the machine where me and the engineer stayed overnight, and they brought out our meals out to the field. But one evening we were quite close to the building, so they told us we could come into the house for our supper. And as we came in there, I saw a young girl in there that I don't know why, but I got attracted to her, and I didn't meet her, that is, I didn't want to know her name or anything, but after I saw her, I couldn't get her out of my mind. I just kept thinking about her. So before I left that part of the country, I found out from the boy where she was working, her name and different things about that. So after I got back home that fall, I wrote her a letter, and to my big surprise, she answered the letter, and that was the start of continuous letter writing back and forth. We wrote letters back and forth all that winter, And the next summer she came out to visit us. And she didn't get to go back either. She stayed there.
Oh, and then how long was it after then you?
We were married in October that year. But during that winter, while I was writing to her, I took a trip out to see her, and that happened to be one of the coldest spells I think we had in that community. It was 48 below zero when I was in Dakota that time, and it come up a big storm, so I had quite a time to get back. But of course I got back and everything went out all right.
Well, did you take the train?
Yeah, that was the only thing to take.
Well, what did they charge you for a ride then?
3 cents a mile them days.
3 cents a mile.
No.
Too bad.
No,
And then that fall she came over and you were married.
that's right.
And then, let's see, Agnes was born the next year or the year after.
No, the next year she was born.
Well, how about your brothers and sisters? How about John coming out there? You know, John and... The people could be started to come move into that community. First when we came, it was very, very few people living there. In fact, it was only, I'd say, about a half a dozen ladies in the whole community. It was all bachelors. But a year or so after we moved in, one by one began to move in there, so it didn't take too long before we had quite a settlement there. But because we had no roads, and we wanted to go out visiting, where we had to walk through swamps and trail through the woods, it was quite a hardship. Well, in the beginning, did you live very far from each other?
Well, a few around the lake, we were 3 or 4 families around the lake, but outside of that, it was far to any other neighbors.
Well, John Anderson, he wasn't too far, was he?
Well, it was about 3 years after when he moved in.
Wow.
And of course he didn't build right away. He didn't get married before several years after, so he was more or less moving back and forth. But finally John Anderson moved in there and got married, and he was one of our best neighbors we had in the community. He's still living there. Very good neighbor.
You should tell a little bit about the dances, barn dances that you had.
Yeah, during our first years up in the woods there, life was kind of lonely in many ways, because we didn't have any movie, we didn't have any shows of any kind to go to. So we were very much dependent upon one another to have some kind of entertainment. And we finally got on the idea to come together at least once a week, generally was Saturday night, for square dances. Many a time we kept on all night long, and we really had good time. We enjoyed ourselves. Of course, that was worldly pleasure. We had quite a little drinking going on, but never any fights or anything. We got along good, and things went along quite smoothly. So that went on for some time. Finally, in the fall of 1908, the Lord visited that community with a revival. He began to save one by one.
A preacher that came by then, or?
No, right from when this revival broke out, there was really no preacher that could have any honor for it. The Lord saved. We had the Lutheran minister that came once a month, and he probably had little to do with the revival, but not too much. One of my brothers, the one next to me, he was hungry for the Lord, and he began to seek the Lord, and
What was his name?
Victor. And the Lord wondrously saved him, and right away he began to gather all those that wanted to come together to have small prayer meetings in the homes. Of course, personally, I wasn't interested. When he told me about it, I told him that he had gotten a great imagination in his head. So he, from then on, for quite some time, he left me alone. He didn't say a thing to me, which acted more on me than if he would have kept on nagging at me all the time. He just let me go, and souls got saved here and there, and I began to really wonder what was happening. So one day we were out working on the road. I drove the team, so I drove in between where they were loading for me, and then out on the road where they dumped the dirt. And on both ends, they were talking about those meetings, how good they were, and how the Lord blessed them. And of course, I was left out of the picture entirely since I hadn't been there, and I hadn't been interested either. So that very day, Thursday evening, I told my brother, I says, why don't you ask me to come to one of those meetings? Well, he says, you're not interested. That's no use to ask you to one of those meetings because you're not interested. But that struck home to my heart very much. So I really got in the conviction right there and then. So when I came in in the evening after work, I asked my wife, I said, do you want to come along with me? She said, sure. And of course, I didn't want to express my thoughts too much in words, so I wanted her to more or less understand what I meant. So I kept on talking around, and finally I told her that I wanted to get saved. And then I said, now I'm going into the next room to pray. I don't want you to come in there. I just want to be all by myself. But because she never heard or seen anything of the kind, so she was very inquisitive. She, pretty soon, she peeked in the door to see what was going on. Well, however, that night I went to the prayer meeting, and I got saved in that meeting. There were 3 of us that got saved in that very meeting. And so it went on. More and more people were saved until practically that whole community.
Oh, your wife didn't go with you the first night?
No, not that first night, no. Practically the whole community were stirred, and we were still belonged to the Lutheran Church. So we made the most of it. We had an elderly Lutheran man that came along to the meetings, and he done his best to read the scripture, and we were down on our knees and pray, and we sang a lot of songs, and it was really wonderful time. Wonderful how the Lord blessed us, even in those kind of meetings. Well, that went on through that winter, and the next summer, my brother Victor, he went to Superior. They had something new had started in Superior. We never heard of it before. They called it Holy Rollers a lot in them days. My brother, he went to Superior to find out what it was all about. Well, anyway, he came back, and he was all interested about it, and he also arranged that a minister from Chicago was to come up that very summer to have a meeting with us. That was Victor Colleen from Chicago and his family. Well, it all came about that myself and my sister-in-law and my brother, we 3 were saved. We were baptized in the water in the lake. That was the first water baptism in the lake.
And the people around about the community, of course, they never have seen anything like it, and being Lutherans, they didn't understand it either, so they came out and they had really a lot of good time on our behalf. And so it went on. But that was a real start to separation from the Lutheran Church. There was several of us that began to see that the Lord had more in store for us, and we started to seek the Lord for it. But several, of course, of the others, they didn't see it, and they didn't want to go along on it. So the Lutheran Church kind of split up on that account.
Alta.
Yeah. Yeah, they send out many Lutheran ministers, sometimes three and four at a time, to try to convince us that we were off. But we enjoyed it so much that we wanted to keep on and seek the Lord, and surely the Lord met with us in a wonderful way. Well, close it off now then.
Well, look at how long were you there at Sheriff Isaac? You started your nursery. You had quite a nursery there.
It was about in the 1910 when we started to do anything to speak of. And we kept on. My brother was very much interested in it. He tried to make a go of it.
He was the one that was really pushing it.
Yeah. But I was the one that had to do a lot of hard work connected with it, because I had to haul out the stuff in the spring and get it on the train. And with the kind of roads we had, that was quite a problem.
Well, you shipped it
To different places where we went around and took up orders, and then we had to ship it to those points.
Oh, did he go around to take up the orders then?
Well, I sometimes went out and took up orders too.
Did you do any advertising or anything?
Not very much. Not very much.
I see. And
some of the stuff we took in, you see, a lot of the trees that we didn't raise out there, we had to ship them in. We sometimes took in boxes that weighed as much as 1,000 pounds that we hauled up there.
Oh.
And then we had to unpack them and fill our orders, and some, of course, we planted. Oh, it kept us busy, really.
well, in the spring you'd get these the big boxes of nursery stock. Well, did you get rid of it by the fall?
Oh, we had to get rid of it in a hurry. See, we had some already ordered for sold, and so we just repacked it and shipped it out again. Others, that wasn't sold while we planted it for the next season. So that's the way it kept us busy, but by the time we were through with that, the farm work was it was too late to do any farming, because we were spending too much time with this here, and that's the part that I didn't like about it.
Well, did you make any money?
No, I lost money myself on it.
Oh, you did? Well, every year? I mean, you kept it.
We, of course, managed to make a living while we were working at it, but there was no money in it.
There was no money.
No.
You even had Alvin Johnson working for you.
He was there for one summer. And helped us.
Oh, I see. What did you pay for your help then?
Oh, the wages was, I don't remember what we did pay out in the summer, but the wages was low. I would say about $1 a day or something like that.
$1 a day, I know. Huh. But you kept on with the nursery for quite a few years, didn't you?
As long as my brother Victor was home, I kept on.
It'll be from 1910 to about 1990.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did it expand? I mean, you get more orders and more customers.
Oh, yeah.
With more customers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. But
Would that have been easier than farming?
no, because of the roads, we were too far back. It was too much of a difference there to get us out on and get us shipped again.
You were shipped, aren't you? Well, how far did you live from the...
It was 4 miles. 4 miles, that is from Laurance.
And the train went through there? Well, isn't that just a day's or less than a day's ride by horse?
Yeah, it was less than a day, but still, that when you have to keep that up day out and day in for several days, we have to do that several days.
Hello, everyone. This is Edna speaking, and Dad and I have been up at Mabel and Willard's home today, and now it is 7 o'clock in the evening, and it's February the 5th. We've had a very nice time here today, visiting with them and the children. And now Mabel is playing the organ, and Dad would like to sing a song for you. I'm sure that you'll all enjoy it. I sing on evermore. Jesus med blodet beseglar, allt vad han lovat han. Himmel och jord må brännna, höjda berg förstämma. Men den som tror skall lämna, löftena det står kvar. Gör så som Abraham gjorde, blicka mot himlen medan du stjärnorna räknar, växer din trohetsman. Himmel och jord må bränna, höjda berg förskrämna, men den som tror skall vinna, löftena de står kvar. Tro när det mörknar på färden, solen ej slocknat har, blott några timmar och sedan strålar en morgon snart. Himmel och jord må bränna, höjda berg försvinna, men den som tror skall finna, löftena de står kvar. Tro när din världen försäljer, med dig i ugnen hem, vandrar en gudason härlig, pröva dig själv att bli. Himmel och jord må bränna, höjda berg försvinna, men den som tror skall finna, löftena de står kvar. Tro när dig vännerna sviker, tro när blott en står kvar. Jesus den vän skall dig följa, alla dagar. Himmel och jord må bränna,
det står kvar. Troende av samligheten, när du ju hämmer, då skall i åskådning visas det som du trodde här. Himmel och jord må brinna, himmel, sönder och berg försvinna, men den som tror skall finna löftena de står kvar. Jag tänker ni alla vet att denna sång var Levi Petrus fick när hans hustru låg på dödsbädden. Men genom trons bön så blev hon återställd och lever ännu idag. Pris Gud.
This is another song we would like to have Dad sing for us. I remember years ago when we were just little children, Mother used to sing this song for us as she was putting us to bed. I remember those happy days when we were just little children and we were around home there. And now, Mother, someday we would like you to sing this song on tape that Dad is going to sing now, Tryggareka in Nevada. Will you sing this song for us sometime? Find a book where the words are and you sing it for us. We'd enjoy that. We'd appreciate it very, very much, Mother, if you would do that for us. And now Dad will sing it for us.
Tryggareka ingen morgon, ändå lilla barnaskaran, stjärnor ner på himlafesten, fågeln ej i kända nästen, Herren sina trogna vårdar, över Sions helga gårdar, över dem han sin förbarmar, bär dem upp på Faders armar. Ingen nöd och ingen lycka skall du ur hans handen rycka, ty han älskar sina vänner och i sina nöd han känner. Glädjig dag du lilla skaran, Jakobs Gud skall dig bevara, för hans vilja måste i alla fiender till jorden falla. Vad han tar och vad han ger, samme Fader han förbliver, och hans mål är blott det ena, manets sanna glädje lena. Vad han tar och vad han giver, samme Fader han förbliver, och hans mål är blott det ena, manets sanna glädje lena. Glädje dag du lilla skaran, Jakobs Gud skall dig bevara, för hans vilja må
and I tell you the song.
What's the end?
Well, I decided that I would come down and see Mother. She's down here at Edna's, and this is the only chance I have to talk alone with her because Esther and John and Edna went to Palm Springs, and so Mother's here all by herself. So I decided that I want to get her life story. I have never heard her whole life story, so now I'm going to ask her some questions and see if she can tell me all about it. Mother, where were you born?
In Sweden.
Oh, you were? How many brothers and sisters did you have?
My brothers and sisters. I have no one.
You didn't have no brothers and sisters?
No.
Oh, I see. I thought you did.
No, that's half.
Your dad married
Yeah.
the second time, or
No,
your
my
mother?
mother.
Your mother was married the second time?
Mm-hmm.
Then you were from the second marriage then?
Mm-hmm. Alone.
Well, how many half brothers and sisters did you have?
I have two half brothers, and I have 4 half sisters.
Oh, I see. And where did you live in Sweden? Near Stockholm, or?
I lived in my town I lived in. There was the town was Defiance,
Oh,
and we were close to Göteborg.
I see. Was it a big town?
I know it wasn't a big town.
Oh, I see. Well, how old were you when you come to this country?
I was 16.
You were 16, huh? Did you come over by yourself?
No, I didn't.
Well, who did you come with?
I don't know what to say about that. Oh, I have a boyfriend.
Oh, I see. You came with your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then when you come to this country, where did you land?
In Winnipeg.
In Canada, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then what did you do there?
Oh, well, I stayed there for a week, and then I was called to a small town close to Winnipeg. I didn't remember the name of the town. I think it was about 30 miles. And then I started to work with the English couple. She had 6 children, and he was a railroad man. And I worked there for 3 months.
Oh, I see. How much did you make there then?
Well, I didn't make very much. I used to stay there to learn the language, so I helped her out for $10 a month.
Oh, I see. And she taught you the language?
Well, the children, they were talking all the time, and so because of that, I learned the language, so after 3 months, I could go to Minnesota.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, then how come you decided to go to Minnesota?
Well, there was my decided to go to Minnesota because I don't like it either in Winnipeg, that small town. I liked it because I would come and meet my half sister here.
Oh, I see. And she lived in Minnesota.
And I have a half brother here too.
Oh.
So I moved to. So then I left that town and moved to a different town. So I come into Minnesota.
Oh, I see.
And
well, then when you came to Minnesota, did you stay with your relations then? Or?
no, I worked in a big hotel.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You mean you were a cook or what?
Yeah, I was a waiter.
Oh, I see. Well, where did you say that was in Minnesota? What was the town that was in Minnesota?
Well, I won't remember the name of the town.
Well, then how come you landed in Sheriff Lake then? Where we were
Oh,
all-
I worked in for many years before I got married.
Oh, you did in Minnesota?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
I worked in Minnesota, I worked in Wisconsin, and I worked in another town, and I worked in different town, Minneapolis and all over.
Well, then how come you decided to go to Minnesota to Sheriff Lake then? Was that because Dad wrote you or happened to see you there and wrote you the letter?
Well, I worked on in a farm, great big farm out in the country.
Oh.
And so then the big
Threshing outfit.
outfit come out there, and I was cooking for that outfit.
Oh, I see.
So I was alone cooking. I cooked them. I didn't remember how many men there was, men there. There was a big thrush rig, and they have many men to work there. And I don't pay enough attention to anybody. Utan they came in and eat the meals and out they went, and I don't talk to anybody so far as that. And so after a few days, then they left to another farmer, and left to another farm.
Yeah.
And one evening, and then, well, it's my husband now. I've been my husband. He came back and had his brother with him.
Oh, I see.
And his brother was a nursery man. And then they came to the house where I was working and talked with the man about different things. And I never paid enough attention to them because I didn't know them very much. And so I went into the kitchen a few times and looked at them, all I did, and went back into the other rooms where the rest of my people was.
Oh.
So then they left. And I didn't think anything of it. When the threshing was over, he went home. That was the place he lived on, then in Church Lake.
Yeah.
So he went home, and after being home for some time, I got a letter. He took my name and address and everything of the son was in the house where I was working.
Oh, I see.
And he started to write, just joke and different so forth. I don't think anything about it. I used to have always for fun to write, so I started to write to him for fun. And then I had many other boyfriends to think about, so I didn't even care for a letter and anything.
Well, then what did he do then? Did he send you the fare and tell you to come out there then?
No.
But he
No.
came to see you one time, though.
Oh, yeah, I worked there on the farm. There was summer, and I worked there early in the fall. Then that the man I worked for, he lived in town in the wintertime.
Oh.
And in the summertime, they moved out on the farm. And so I don't think much of it. And finally, he write more and more. And so then he went to town in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And so then he was really snowstorm, and then he came back there just special to see me. I don't know, I didn't was thinking very much about that. I had many other things to think about, so.
And he came back to visit you?
Yeah, he came back special to visit me.
Well, then did you go back with him then?
No, I didn't go back with him. He just came there and visited and stayed there for a few days, and then he was on his way home.
Oh.
When I worked there all winter for the fella, because the lady was a cripple, so I took care of her.
Yeah.
She had 2 boys home and 1 girl.
Yeah.
So then in the spring, then I thought I was going to see I have a half-brother but there's some places there in Valley City.
Yeah.
I don't remember the town he was, because he was more out in the country.
Yeah.
And so, then in the spring, I thought I was going to see my brother.
Yeah.
So I left that place, didn't want me to go. So first I left the place, and then he came to me, find me then in town, and he said, I'll give you anything if you want to stay. No, I say, I can't change my plan now. And finally then, I decided to go to Duluth.
Oh. You didn't know anybody there, though. You didn't know anybody there. You just decided to go.
I didn't know anybody.
Oh.
I just decided I would take a trip to Duluth, and so then I thought, I'll see after what I will do, and I kind of was set to go to Duluth and get a job and work there.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even dream about, think about go and get married and anything, for what he had written to me, then I didn't pay enough attention to that.
No.
There were more other things I was more concerned about.
Well, then, did you work in Duluth then?
No, I came to Duluth, and when I came to Duluth, then I gave him a letter. I told him I was in Duluth, and he come there right away.
Oh.
Then he come to Duluth and saw me, and so then he said, what would it be to go out to Sheriff Lake for a visit?
Yeah.
So I thought, well, maybe I go out and see the place before I settle down in Duluth and start to work.
Yeah.
So I went out there, and there I left.
There you stayed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did you stay there very long before you were married?
No, I don't stay there long. Maybe it was a month or so.
Oh, did you have a church wedding?
Yes. No, we went to Aiken, to little town, and got married. No, I didn't have a church wedding.
Oh, I see.
No.
So then you lived in that old Victor's house then?
Yeah, I stayed there, and he had built a house before I came there.
Oh, I see.
And it was not really finished, so you could move in. And then he finished the house. So after then, we got married and moved into that house.
And then your work started, huh?
Then my work started. So
Yeah.
I didn't need to look for a job anymore, because
Yeah.
the job lasts forever.
Yeah. Well, did you start out with a whole bunch of cows right away, or what?
No, we didn't have I think we don't have more than one cow.
And then you gradually
And
worked up.
some chickens, and then he was in business with his brother in the nursery business.
Oh.
So they worked more with that, and the farming there at that time, the land wasn't cleared, and there was more stumps and woods and all that. When there was a beautiful lake where lots of fish there, and that's what the many like it out there, but they settled down was because of that lake, and they thought quite a much of the wooden country there, because they saw that there was quite a much money in it. So what they working with, that was to cut wood and hard wool and drive it and haul it to town and sell it. That was their living.
Yeah.
And then we didn't live on the cow, so that we have just one for our own use. And so.
Well, then you were married just a year about then when Agnes was born.
Yeah.
Well, she was sick though, wasn't she? When did she get sick?
No,
She
she
was
didn't. She was born. She was about. I think she must be about 2 years.
Before she got, was that polio she
Yeah,
got?
she got polio.
Oh, well then how did she get over that?
She got so bad, so she couldn't walk. So I carried her all over, from the bed to the chair, and from the chair some other places, and she ran before she got it.
Oh.
She used to walk outside playing and running around all over. when they came on her, it was like a shot. And so she quit walking then, and I think she was that way just about a year. When they saw there was no hope for it, they all said there was no hope for that sickness, because there wasn't a thing doctor could do with it in that sickness to get. And so we believe God, and we start to pray for her. We fast and praying all the time. So, and finally I think she got healed in the way she started crawling around a little more. And one day she was standing up on the floor alone. And she said, "Mother," she said, "see." She said, "I can stand now."
Yeah.
And the girl wasn't big, man. She was happy. And I kind of was happy, so they kind of touched me in a way. Thank God for it. And in a way, I started to cry, you know. I thought it was so wonderful.
Yeah, that was.
And she started to go just like a little baby. She went from the chair and to some other thing, and she started to go a little bit more and a little bit more, got herself loose and take more steps and other steps and so forth, before she knew that she started to run alone.
Yeah, that was so. So you were lucky.
So that was a wonderful. And that year, it was the year what Sinny's brother, Alvin Johnson.
Yeah.
His brother got it, and he still crippled up.
Oh,
It was the
I
same year. I know many people got it in the same year she got it.
It was like an epidemic. Huh?
Yeah, and they still crippled.
Yeah, I know.
So far as I know, that she was the only one who we know, and there were many. Some could able to walk today.
Yeah. Usually they are left crippled like that.
No, that's the thing. There's no cure for.
Well, then you had 8 children, didn't you?
8 children, yes.
Yeah. You never went to a doctor though with any of them.
No, I never saw a hospital, never saw a doctor.
You just had
I was home there, and we have a lady came in, and she took care of me for a week or so, and that was that.
Yeah. Yeah, you had a lot of hard work.
Well, there was much hard work there, and then one thing I didn't feel bad over the hard work. I was young and strong and healthy, and I loved work.
You must have been strong, because you carried the milk and the water up the hill. That was hard work.
Yeah, we have no water close to the place. Everything had to be carried up on the hill for many, many years. Just about the years the children were small, and they still were grown up. We didn't have no water. We tried to get water, and we couldn't get no water up on the hill, so we had to carry it from the lake.
You mean you tried to dig a well?
Tried to dig the 2 wells, and they caved in, so there was no hope for that.
Oh.
So we tried everything for the water part, and the same told that was out in that time.
Yeah. Well, when did you build the other house, or did you build it?
No, we bought. His brother got married, and then they went to China for missionary.
Oh.
And then he bought his brother's place.
Oh, I see.
Because we liked that better, and they were close to each other, and so he bought his place. He took that over.
That was really a nice house, though. It had a big orchard and everything.
He would have a really beautiful place close to that lake, and all kinds of trees and apples and flowers, and they really was the beautiful place anybody could see. He had hundreds of peonies, all kinds of peonies, and it was a really nice place.
But it's just hard to make a living.
Well, but the farming wasn't much, because we started to get more and more cows, and he was taken out the woods and many years, and our wood was taken out, and then we had to start with the farming, course, to do something there, man.
Well, then what did you do with the milk? Did you haul it?
Well, we, at that time, we milked the cows and took the milk through the machine, you know. And
you had a
then
milking
we sold
machine?
the cream.
You had a milking machine then?
No milking machine at that time. We all was hand work.
Oh, I see.
Everything was hand work. No wash machine, and you didn't even have a wringer to wring the clothes.
You had to wring
You
them
have
out.
to wring with hands and rub them with hands, and
That
it was
must-
all hand work. There was no machine for anything.
Is that right?
They went on for many, many years.
Yeah, it's surprising how a person can get along. Well, when did your mother, did your folks ever come to this country then to live with you?
No, she didn't. She came many, many years after I was married. She came over to this country and she went to Canada. So she have his daughter there too. There was her, not really her daughter, and his husband's daughter, you know. She raised them anyway.
Oh, well, I thought she came out to Sheriff Lake one time
Yes, she did.
for a visit.
She came there for a visit.
Yeah, 'cause I remember, didn't she used to smoke a pipe?
Yeah, she did smoke the pipe.
Yeah, I remember that. I must have a pretty good memory when I can remember that.
Yeah, she did smoke the pipe, because the Swedish people, they have it that way, that there was to smoke a pipe.
Did she get saved though before she died?
When she came to me in there at the church, and she stayed over the winter. And later on in the spring, she went to Minneapolis, to Wisconsin. She had the other daughter there. And she was there then part of the summer, and then she went back to Canada.
Oh.
When she died in Canada, man, she got wonderful sad and happy before she died.
Oh, I see. Well, that's
She
good.
want my sister to write to me, and I would tell me that she knows she went home.
How about your dad? Was he a Christian?
No, he wasn't, man. He got saved before he died.
Oh, he
He
did?
was a drunkard.
He was a drunkard.
Yeah, he was a drunkard when I was home. Very bad drunkard, man.
Well, Dad and you, when you were first married, you weren't saved though either.
Oh, I was saved once. I was saved when he got saved, and I backslid when he backslid.
Oh, I see.
And then before he died, he come back to God again.
No, I mean, I'm talking about Dad now.
Oh,
I'm talking about Dad now, Dad and you.
oh. Well, he wasn't saved when we got married.
No, that's what I thought. He wasn't saved when you
No,
first
we
got-
went for many years before he got saved.
Yeah.
Out the church, see. No.
Well, when revival did break out there, I know that you threw away all your rings and everything, didn't you? Didn't you throw away your wedding ring and everything when you got saved?
No.
I thought you did.
No, I didn't.
So, then who built the church out there then? When was that built?
That church, there wasn't built for the church. The church they called there, that time, there was a log house. His parents lived many years before they built that new house.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, when they start to, when my husband's brother, when he had built the house and finished that, then they start to have church in that log house.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I remember the log house.
Yeah. So they have church there for many, many, many years. And there was a really revival, and the people come out and they got saved, and oh, there was a wonderful time. They have out there at the time, they have a revival. And then my husband got saved, and I got saved, and many others, you know.
Yeah, I remember that log cabin church.
Yeah.
And I remember they used to have prayer meetings in your home.
Fritchie used to come there, and sometimes there were 2 or 3 stay for weeks and months sometimes. And they all just feel at home here and there to my home, and they love to come, and I did love to have them. So when they could stay there for have meetings sometimes for weeks and weeks, you know.
Yeah.
And I cook for them, and they have all just have at home there when they come around,
Yeah.
all of them. So our home was always open for missionary riches.
I remember that they during conventions they used to sleep out even up in the hay barn.
Oh yeah, they don't. They wasn't in the style. They don't care that time. You should get the place to sleep and couldn't be at the meeting. They all be careful, and they were in the hay barn. They were shouting and praising God. You know, you can't think the roof was going to go off.
Yeah.
Was happy. No, they don't look for beauty and anything. Just so they could lay down.
Yeah.
And they were happy time, and they were happy in Lord, and it was a wonderful time we have out there. And since that, they have been going on for many, many years, and still are the same. But many have died and gone, so that not many of the old folks left anymore out there.
That's it.
And
Well, were all your children born out there in Sheriff Lake, or what?
yes, all was born out there.
And then when did you move to Duluth then?
To Duluth.
I think
Well,
I think I was about
I've been
13.
in Duluth for about either 25 or 30 years now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
And then my husband got the job at the Board of Education, and he worked for that place since he came to Duluth.
oh. Well, then he used to be caretaker of a skating rink too, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, for a few months when we lived up in Kenwood, he was more of a boss on the skating rink.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. You lived in Kenwood
Yeah,
first.
I lived in Kenwood.
What'd you do? Trade that house off for the other one out in Sheriff Lake?
Yeah, we turned that house out. There was a chicken, there was a poultry farm.
I know that you said that Dad didn't really want. He wanted to stay out there. Only God could make him move.
Yes, because he was just about raised there, and he was young when he came there, and his folks was there, and he was there for many, many years, and worked hard and tried to make the living in many ways, and so then I told him many times, I said, I don't like to live here. I said, that work is too hard. And I said, no convenient or anything. I said, I like the Sweden better, I say, and I like it here for that part. I didn't see my future there.
No, that's
But he didn't want to go. It was the last thing I thought he would go to leave it. So I didn't say anymore, and I keep praying. I say, God help me out of here. I said, I can't take that country anymore. They got more work and seem to hard work and to carrying water and do all that work. I used to but feel I couldn't stand any more of it. So I prayed to God some way, talk to him, so he is willing to leave this country and go some other place. So before I know it, then he said, I'm going to move out of here. I said, why? What happened to you now? I said, I thought you would never leave that place.
Yeah.
No, he said, I don't think nobody like me around here anymore, he said. Seems to everybody acts so funny.
Yeah.
He said, I put my mind, I'm going to move out of here. I'm not going to live in that place anymore. Oh, I said, oh, that was a funny thing. I said, you like to live now when they're more cleared up and more fixed up and look much better. Yes, he said, I'm going, he said, I'm going. So then he make a arrangement, raise statement to come up there and look at the place, and it won't took long before sale went through, and we start to move.
Is that right?
And I couldn't believe it. I thought, what happened to the man? Ain't going something wrong with him?
You never thought that day would come, did you?
No, I never thought about it. I would never say that day. Then In a way, that's the way I see it now. There wasn't much future in a way to either get rich or make lots of money. We make the living and raise our children. Men, they seem to that way they got raised in a way that have been and saved, and all is going on the Lord God.
Yeah.
That was the thing I can appreciate, because this all still going on with God beside one boy.
Yeah.
When that part I leave to him, I know he's coming too. So that's why I appreciate of the whole place there. Our children got saved.
Yeah.
And learned to know the Lord, and we all got saved there.
Yeah. That's it.
So before we got saved out there, my home was a dance hall.
Is that right?
Yeah, they have parties, and sometimes we dancing there 2 morning,
Is that
2
right?
daylight.
Doesn't seem possible.
And they were drinking beer, and they have all kinds of stuff to drink, and they really thought they really have a really good time, and the house was always full. And young folks from the country come over there, and I used to love dance. I like to dance, man. And my husband, he couldn't dance, man. He couldn't dance square dance.
Oh.
So we thought we had a good time there, man. Before I know it, the same thing came to me. I said that I told my husband, we have to quit to have people here for dance. I said, they seem to, I can't stand it anymore.
Yeah.
I was not saved then, and then I said, we have to quit. I said, I can't stand that dancing and all that stuff, they had drinking and have it in my home, I said. So I say, I want you to quit it right away. So we did. Stop the dancing and stop the drinking, and we never let anybody come in our home for that part.
Uh-huh.
And I'm glad I did, because after then, the God started to talk to us, and we all got saved.
Yeah.
And then they got the big revival over the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was something, all right. Well, did you ever make any trips to Duluth when you lived out there? Or?
Oh, yes, we went to Duluth many times.
You did?
Oh,
Did you have a car then? You went by car?
No, yes, we had my husband had a car. He bought the car, and then he gave it up to my son, and one of my brother's son, they started business. They went to Duluth once a month, once a week. They sold eggs, and they sold cream, and they sold meat, and everything.
Where did they get the meat from?
We butchered.
Oh, you mean you butchered...
out in the country.
You butchered steers or chickens or what?
Yeah, we butchered chickens.
Oh, I see.
We dressed the chickens, and sometimes they butchered animals.
Oh.
And then they took the meat and sold it in Duluth.
Oh.
And cut it up in different quarters.
Well, how many times a month did you come to Duluth?
Pardon?
You mean once a week you went down there?
Yeah. Them boys went down once a week, and we gave them a certain amount of the money for they sold it.
Yeah.
They went from house to house, you know.
Oh.
And so them 2 boys, they was making their own money,
Uh-huh.
and then we get our part of it. So
Oh,
that's the way we went for, well, we went for years.
Oh.
And then we let them have our car. The boys took my husband's car, and they went to town.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So that was the business for them, and we got more for the chicken and eggs to take it to town and
Yeah.
to sell it out in the country.
Oh, yeah. And then Dad used to be chauffeur for everybody else, too, wasn't he? Get stuff for everybody else.
Well, he was the one, he never refused to help anybody. And sometimes I got mad at them poor that I said, you should take care of your own business and be home and take care of the farm, little differs. And me sitting on the road hauling big blows to the whole neighborhood.
That's it.
He stopped here and he stopped there and he stopped there. Some want flour, they want sugar, they want coffee, they want that and that. And he was the only one on the road.
Yeah.
Sometimes he used horses and a big wagon, and sometimes he used a car to haul that stuff. It's in the muddy road. Sometimes he was stuck in the mud and had the car all loaded up with feed inside, and the back and the front and all that, and she couldn't hardly get home. And then he stopped everybody on load the grocery for them, and the same too. There was he's supposed to do that. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I've been mad many times, man.
Yeah.
So well, that night he couldn't help them out. He had a heart to help people. He don't just live for himself.
No.
He always want to help people when he saw need and he saw what he could help them. He never refused.
No, that's it. Well, then when you came to Duluth, and how long did you live in Kenwood then? Quite a few years?
We must have lived there for about, was it 5 or 10 years?
And then you moved out to Palmer.
And then we sold that place in Kenwood, and then we moved out in big farm, 80 acres farm out in the Palmer.
Yeah, that was
So
a nice
we bought that. When I liked that place, I didn't like the ground. The men didn't like the ground. They were red clay. Then we have up to 25 cows there, and the milk machines and everything were running the machinery. So that was much better.
The only thing is, their dad still worked in town, though, didn't
And still, he keep his job in town. He went in the morning, come on the evening. And so he couldn't do much on the farm. My children, they helped with the farm, and my son and George and Elmer wasn't so big then.
Then you had, after a while, you had some welfare boys, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I have welfare boys. Sometimes I have 3 of them, 4 sometimes. So they were nice to help too on the farm, and we was there many years. 'Cause I run the milk machine and do the milking, and I like that. And so.
But I think you like city life better. You ended up, you moved back to Duluth.
Well, they got that way. They took my sons to the army. I didn't have no help.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And he won't give his job up and do the farming, so they're left alone.
Yeah.
And I feel that way. I didn't like that very much either. So I didn't have much help on the farm, and so we used to about have to give that up.
Well, then where did you move? Downtown, almost downtown, didn't you?
No, when we sold the farm, we went to Washington.
Oh, you went to Washington? Oh, I forgot about that.
We thought we liked Washington, and we was going to buy a place and live there. And when we came there, he couldn't get any work what he really liked. He don't like to be working in the slaughterhouse, and I don't like it too well there with the climate. We're raining all the time and not hardly any sunshine. And so I got disgusted and disappointed, and I told him I don't want to live here. He have to either lose his job in Duluth or go back in 6 months.
Oh, he had just a leave of absence.
Yeah.
Well, then you went.
So at 6 months we went back to Duluth.
Oh.
And he got his job back.
Oh, I see. Yeah, he had a pretty good job as a school board.
Oh yeah, it was a steady job, and it was a good job.
Well, then you made a trip to California and tried that out too, didn't you?
Yeah, he wanted to try that out, and he worked, I think, for school again so long, and And then they all just gave him a few weeks of vacation.
Yeah.
So then he wanted to see California. So then we said, we hadn't bought anything yet, no house and anything. So
No.
then he wanted to see California. So then we took a trip to California. And then he got this job there too. He worked in a Cadillac garage. And somehow I can't take the climate in California, so I seemed to, I didn't like it, and I got kind of sick and feel different. So
you went back.
we went back to Duluth again.
Yeah, you have been sick couple times, real bad sick, where you were in the hospital when you were living in Duluth.
Oh yeah, well, of course that happened.
One time I remember everybody came home, and you were in the hospital that time. You had infection in your face or something.
Yeah, and well, nobody knew what it was. I guess doctor didn't even know, and they say they couldn't do anything. They say if there was any hope, they will operate on my head. They cut my head open in the back. And I don't thought this sounds very good. They said we couldn't guarantee your life.
No.
It's up to you. So we called Edna home, and she came home from California, and
I think we came home that time too.
So then I was in a hospital for a day or so, and I told them, Edna come home, and she don't want me to go through operation. I didn't want to go. And so I said, then I told the doctor, I said, I want to go home. Well, he said, if you eat breakfast and dinner, I'll let you go home. So I did. I stayed there for 2 days, and then I went home, then they was home from Washington, and Edna came home. So they all prayed, and I got healed.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I got better. So I've gone through many things, man. I'm still on my feet and feeling fine.
Yeah, you look good.
Yeah.
The only trouble with you is you got too much ambition.
Yeah, well, I always had loved working all my life, and I don't think work kill anybody, so still I like to work. And now I'm staying here in California with Edna, and here is Mabel, and
You've been here now for, what is it?
4 months.
4 months? It doesn't seem like 4 months.
Oh, yeah.
Time goes so fast. So
I enjoy to be here, and the same to the climate here. It's nice weather in a way, and the sunshine, and look nice and green. Flowers is out, and the same to it. I don't know what it is. I still can't take the climate.
yeah, you've been sick a couple
I feel
times.
better to be in the country where they cold and different climate.
Yeah, it seems like it's working out that way. But we're always glad to have you come back for a visit anyway. Even if you can't live here, you can always come back for a visit.
Well, they seem to, when you think about it, it's pretty far.
And
They go over 2,000 miles, you know.
it's far, but we've made the trip several times, and Edna has, and
Yeah.
Esther and John are here now to take you up there for a while.
Yes, I'm going back with them now and stay for a while.
You're going to stop and see your relations in Oregon.
Well, I think John is going to stop there. He said if he stay overnight, then I would go with him right straight back to Washington, unless they want me to stay over.
Oh,
I don't know yet, so I won't know what it be when I come there.
no.
That's my sister's children there.
Yeah. Well, we'll shut this off for a while now and see how it turned out.
I gave you my favorite song. I liked it very much.
help in telling my life story up to this point, since it was all really happening to you. And I need to ask you a couple questions, as I remember how you told the story of your miracle to me in the past, is that it came to the point where you needed to have your cast removed and did that. And then I guess it was just a couple days after that, it must have been Sunday night, you were left alone with me, and Grandma and Dad went to church, the Sunday evening service at Bethel. And you were sitting there, and tell me how you were feeling right at that moment.
I was feeling kind of blue and discouraged.
And that was because you hadn't been able to step on your foot yet, am I correct?
Yeah,
You had just
yes.
gotten the cast off?
Yes, and I couldn't I could hold you, but I couldn't walk around and carry you.
Right. And then my understanding is that Brother Bangs is an elder at Bethel Assembly. I remember him very clearly as I got older. And then there was Mr. Berg.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in that Sunday evening service.
Yes.
And because Brother Bangs was an elder, he was sitting up on the platform. What did he say about that?
Well, as he was sitting there, I kept coming before him, and he felt led to leave the service and come and pray for me.
So right in the middle of the Sunday evening service, God spoke to him?
To come and pray. So he and Mr. Berg came.
Wow, they left the service and came. That's wonderful. So they knocked on the door, and you had to obviously get your crutches and walk there.
Walk to the door and open it up.
And you must have been very surprised.
I was.
So what did Brother Bangs say to you at the door?
Well, he said I kept coming before him, and he wanted to come and pray, so I sat down, and he read some scripture, and then he prayed. They both prayed, and then he said, Bernice, if you feel led in faith, get up and walk.
Wow. Okay, that's wonderful. So they just left and went back to the service, right?
Mm-hmm.
It probably didn't take them that long.
No. So then you started to cry, and you needed your bottle. So before I knew it, I was in the kitchen. And I realized I was walking. I didn't have my crutches. I got so excited.
I guess you would be excited. As I understand it,
I'd never walked since the accident. I'd never walked.
You came back in and you gave me the bottle. You sat down, and then you were thinking about what had happened to you after you fed me. You said you laid me down in a bassinet.
Yes,
and
right.
You got up, and what did you do?
Well, I walked around. I was so excited, praising the Lord. I'm healed, I'm healed. And then I sat down, and I really put my ankle to the chest. I sat down. Both of my feet were going up and down, up and down. And the one that was crippled wasn't crippled anymore. It was just like my other one. And it was just a wonderful healing. God is faithful.
And then you put me down, and then what did you get up? You said you got up and you were praising the Lord?
Yes.
And is that when Dad and Grandma came to the door? And what did they see you doing?
They were really surprised because I came to the door carrying you. And I hadn't done that because I either had that big cast on or crutches.
God is great. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for sharing this. I just wanted people to hear your voice, telling your own story. It's been such a blessing in my life to know that God is real. He does miracles on a daily basis as we move out in faith and pray for each other.
And it's been
48 years.
It's been 48 years, and I haven't had any pain, and that ankle was badly broken, many bones broken in the ankle. And I did go back to the doctor, and I told him what a wonderful healing I had. So he didn't really like that. He says, oh, so I don't get the credit.
Well, that would be typical, I'm sure.
Of a doctor.
But I'm sure he was happy for you, that you could carry me around. Thank you so much, Mom. I love you.
Probably should have said.
On October 31st, 2002, I was diagnosed with an acoustic neuroma brain tumor. The biggest moment in my life is when I accepted Jesus Christ into my heart at 7 years old in Bethel Assembly Church in Tacoma, Washington. And by the way, I'm the speaker for MOPS at Overlake Christian Church and Elder's Wife there as well. I was privileged to be there when my daughters at ages 3 and the other one at 5 to lead them to Jesus Christ. They received him as their Savior at a very young age. I met my husband, David, in 1974 at Burlington Northern Railroad. I was a key punch operator there, working full-time, and he was in between his junior and senior year at Seattle Pacific College. It was love at first sight for me. We dated 2 years, and we were married at Westgate Chapel in Edmonds. And a year later, we bought a house in Linwood that we've been in ever since, and it's been 25 years. A thing I would say about me is that I am highly motivated, very persistent, goal-oriented, and I really like to work hard. In the past, I have really enjoyed playing accordion, piano, and singing. I love to read and garden. My mother and father worked with me, as well as 2 other employees, in my family-owned business, which is family child care. I've been in business for 23 years, and 3 years ago, I was named Model Site for Snohomish County in family child care. The burden that I am carrying, I would describe in this way. His yoke is easy, and his burden is light. What I'm really looking forward to getting out of this seminar here, speakers speaking up, is to be able to speak with confidence and not use notes, which I just did for the very first time.
Have you ever wanted to walk on the water? I do. And I am in the position to do so. On October 31st, 2002, I was diagnosed with an acoustic neuroma brain tumor. On November 3rd, at Overlake Christian Church, our pastor, Rick Kingham, and the elders and wives laid hands on me and prayed that I would receive this miraculous healing. I have had 2 MRIs. The second was on May 5th, 2003, this year, which showed this tumor is still there and it's growing. The tumor causes deafness, ringing in ears, imbalance, numbness in face, and twitching of the eye. It eventually causes stroke and death. Hallelujah. I am in the position to trust God for a miraculous healing. What a privilege to know Jesus and be loved and be provided for by our Almighty God, and to know Jesus, who sent his Son as a sacrifice to pay for my sin, actually taking all of my past, present, and future sin on himself as a curse, to have his own Father God separate himself from him at the cross for the only time, but then have to go to hell in my place and get the keys to free us from the curse of sin. And there is more. Mark 11:23 through 24 says, "Whoever says to this mountain, 'Be taken up and cast into the sea,' and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says is going to happen, it shall be granted him. Therefore I say to you, all things for which you pray and ask, believe that you have received them, and they shall be granted to you." Do you know that Jesus, whipping, scourging, beating, he took on his body was to pay for the miraculous healing for you? Just as you receive salvation as you believe, so we receive healing when we believe God's word. God's word is life to our bodies. As we believe his words of promise for his provision for us, we receive it, and it manifests in our physical bodies. God has provided everything for you in life. Trust him for the impossible with what he has provided in the promises of his word.
remember the time when in darkness I wandered on the mountain of sin. I had traveled so long, like the prodigal son. All my goods I had squandered, but the Savior came in, and he gave me a song.
I can tell you now the time.
I can tell you the time.
I can take you to the place.
I can show you the place where the Lord saved me.
Where the Lord saved me
by his wonderful grace. By his wonderful grace.
But I cannot tell you
For I know not the
how.
how.
And I cannot
childhood you have heard the wondrous story of the Christ who gave his life on Calvary's tree. How for you he left his Father's home in glory, bore the cross that you from sin might be made free. Wondrous love and mighty blood. If you knew him, as I know him, you would make my Savior yours this very